And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics, and certainly some exciting things to discuss today with volleyball and basketball, women's basketball. But I would like to take just a moment before we get into the meat and the bones of the show today to express our prayers, sympathy, and wishes to those throughout our Commonwealth and throughout our region who suffered some pretty horrific damage and death last night with the tornadoes and strong winds that blew through while a lot of us were sleeping, especially to the folks in Mayfield, which a nice, cute little town that is pretty much no more after the damage that occurred there. So, got four in the house today myself, Jeff, Case, and Jared. Let's just kind of start the show, guys, a little bit about talking about that monstrosity that rolled through here. You don't mess with Mother Nature, fellas. I think, Jared, that would prove to be very true last night.
Yeah, that's just one of those things is no matter what we can build and construct with our infrastructure, Mother Nature is still going to find a way to reap the ultimate destruction if she chooses to do so. And unfortunately, here for much of the state of Kentucky, especially Western Kentucky, it proved to be true. And we're still just starting to gather a lot of the facts and see some of the pictures and videos of just how bad it was. And it's horrible and devastating. And I mean, all we can do is just hope for the best at this point.
You know, Jeff, looking at those pictures of Mayfield and especially that candle factory, it looks like somebody just dropped a bomb on that city.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw somebody on Twitter comment to on one of the pictures said they thought it was a color. It looked like a colorized version of like Nagasaki and Hiroshima, which may be a little bit of a exaggeration, but I mean seriously, some massive devastation from a really big storm, really big tornado. I think there's going to be some questions to ask in some corners about some things we were talking about a little bit before, but mostly just very tragic with a lot of lives lost. May set a record for number of lives lost from a tornado in a day in Kentucky, which would eclipse the 1974 super outbreak and an even bigger one back in apparently 1890 that we had. So um, obviously it's tragic. It's just awe inspiring to see from the pictures and videos, and awe in the most somber sort of way. Uh, but I was saying I pretty much slept through it, which in hindsight was probably not very wise. But fortunately, no issues here where I am. So
Yeah, I heard both alerts here locally, but you know, Case, there's an old saying that goes, history shows again how nature points out the folly of man. And I think
Little
last night that was
little oyster
definitely
cult.
true. Yes, it is, sir. Good reference, Case. I
Yeah,
didn't think you
I
knew
got
that
it. I
one.
knew it. Yeah.
Good,
Um,
that's a great song, by the way. But anyway,
it
you
is.
know, Case, just one of the things that comes to mind here with the tragedy that happened at the candle factory is where was upper management in warning the employees?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of questions asked about that, to be sure. And just to Jeff's point about pretty much sleeping through it, it's often talked about how you know the Mississippi River Valley, the Ohio River Valley, uh, are the tornado alley in the central U.S. gets a lot of the credit for the number of tornadoes that they have.
mhm.
Obviously, very dangerous, but the river valley climates are actually usually far more dangerous from a tornado perspective because the weather patterns make them happen overnight. Jeff talked about how he slept through it. People do all the time. Like, you if you don't get the alert, you don't have um, alerts don't come to your phone, or you don't have a weather radio, or you're not prepared. People just sleep through it all the time. So that makes it really scary. It's tough to follow. You can't see nearly as far in the very hilly areas. Storms like that can change direction very quickly versus some of the more flatter parts of the country. So definitely scary. And like you said, the candle factory is there's going to be a lot of questions to be asked of during an investigation into what went on there. And I would anticipate it won't be, before the end of the week where we start seeing lawsuits come out.
Yeah, I would think that litigation would be something that does develop down the road on this, on what happened down there. But once again, our hearts go out to not only Cardinal fans in that area, but all of the people down in that southwest area of our state down there who got it a lot worse than we did. I mean, at my place, all we got was some down branches. Okay, that's part-time pain. That's doable, but certainly could have lost a lot more. So
Yeah, call out a little bit on Bowling Green as well. Got some pretty good damage down there from the tornado. Had a Western Kentucky student killed who was set to graduate today. They were going to have their commencement ceremony today. So that ceremony has been canceled at this point. Obviously, the campus was without power this morning, but obviously that's pretty tragic as well. Just kind of Bill kind of touches on the tragedy of young life and whatever. It was off campus housing, so they said everybody on campus was fine, but yeah, so there. And then apparently also some pretty significant damage in Taylorsville, I think is what I heard as well. It's a little hard to get too much news out of some of these because everybody's kind of focused, understandably so, on Mayfield so much, but yeah,
Campbellsville as well.
Yeah.
More south central, definitely. Yeah, it skipped just south of Shelbyville. Checked in with some of my people that I know in Spencer County. Apparently, it kind of just skipped back up after it went over Taylorsville. But the south of Louisville and the 64 corridor definitely took the brunt of it all the way, like you said, Paul, down into southwest area.
and certainly would encourage and hope that you will help these people out in their time of need. Obviously, the Red Cross is a very good way to donate and help this situation down there. I'm sure that there will be food and water drives and other things that are going on. So just kind of a thought here from Cardinal Couple. There are some folks out there, you all, that got it a lot worse than we did here locally. And if you can do anything to help them through this time of sadness and need and want, I hope you will. I really do. So, yeah, not the best way to start a Saturday morning, guys, on a show that discusses the joy,
and excitement.
Yeah, where I feel like Case is going to pass the plate now, and we're all going to leave very quietly from the vestibule. But no, it's we have these things happen in life. As being a survivor of the 1974 tornado here in Louisville, my heart goes out to those people because I remember the devastation as well. But let's move on into the meat and bones of the show a little bit here, and as we traditionally do, Case will start us out with our scheduling and Twitter information. So take it away, sir.
Yeah, so middle of December here, getting into the kind of the heart of basketball season. And fortunately, have not wrapped up all of our fall sports yet, as volleyball clings on to the last vestiges of fall sports. Clemson and Notre Dame went to penalties in the men's soccer semifinals of the tournament last night, so that was interesting, especially to see ESPN put the score line up that showed that the final score after penalties was 1-1 and didn't highlight either team as the winner. So that was very interesting to me. But as for the schedule, going on today, indoor, the track Cardinal Classic. They're hosting that one, like we mentioned last week, down at the Louisville Urban League indoor facility in West Louisville. The big one, volleyball, hosting Georgia Tech in that dreaded double rematch Never a match you want to play, but that one's at 6 p.m. That'll be on ESPNU. I believe it's hard to fill up Freedom Hall, so I think you could get tickets. Probably not many of much account unless you're buying them resale from teams that have already departed. But you should be able to get in there if you want to get to that game in person, but it'll be on ESPNU. If not, I think that might be one of the earlier games, so hopefully they can start it on time on TV or figure out how to put it on a different channel.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, women's basketball taking on Kentucky in the Battle of the Bluegrass and the Jimmy V Classic. That one is in the Yum Center at 1 p.m. It'll be on ESPN primary. Monday is an off day for everyone. Men's basketball will take on Southeastern Louisiana at 6 p.m. in the Yum Center, so I'm sure I'll have fun dealing with traffic after work for that one. That one's on the ACC network. Wednesday, another off day. Thursday is women's basketball versus Eastern Kentucky, again in the Yum Center at 8 p.m. on the ACC network proper. So a couple of linear games for UofL in the midweek. And then if I pull up the bracket here, just to be sure. Oh, I got to go back a couple of times. The semifinals for the volleyball tournament are on Thursday the 16th as well. So you may need to double screen it up depending on what time they put those matches and if Louisville's in it, based on how today goes, to have the semifinal of the volleyball tournament on Thursday the 16th. 17th will be an off day for everyone, and then championship match in the volleyball tournament on Saturday the 18th, and men's basketball heads down to Bowling Green to take on Western Kentucky. So mostly basketball-filled week with a couple other things that can drop in there depending on how things go. But it's definitely interesting to see every other day of the schedule empty. It's a uncommon occurrence even during basketball season.
Yes, it is indeed. But, it's a fun time of year, Case.
It is. It'd be a lot more fun if Louisville men's basketball could not ruin DePaul Day for the rest of us. But
Oh, boy, I watched that one at the end, and the
I wish
Cards,
I hadn't.
the Cards basically in that contest couldn't hit the broadside of a barn at the end. That was sad. I mean, thank God that Malik Williams played. Otherwise, they could have beat us about 30, right? Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
Ugh.
DePaul Day is over. Everything is wrong except for volleyball. Volleyball holding strong. So, as for our Twitter accounts, I tweet is at best case scenario. That's BSTK scenario, where you can follow along when I turn on men's basketball games in the middle of the first half, and then tweet about how I should probably turn them off. Polly is at Cardinal Couple. Jeff is at Card Couple Radio and at Jeff McAdams. Jared is at Mr. Anderson Jared, and Daryl, who should be joining us here in a few more weeks once we turn the page to 2022. She tweets us at DarylFaust4. And as always, you can keep up with all of the UofL women's athletics accounts on the right side of the Cardinal Couple website in the little Twitter widget. So that'll do it for scheduling and Twitter.
Follow along, give us your ideas, and certainly we do look forward to Daryl coming back. I think she's being one of Santa's elves right now or something up in the North Pole. I don't know. No, she stays very busy, so we miss her, but we'll get her back eventually. But let's move it on into the main part of the show, and let's start it out with volleyball today. Naturally, with the Cards facing Georgia Tech for the third time this season. Jared, we swept them twice in Atlanta and also at the LNFCU, but they certainly were not easy matches, sir.
No, Georgia Tech, as just mentioned all year, has just kind of been underrated. And we're finally starting to see just how good they are, and that the 8th seed they earned was well-deserved as they made it to the Elite Eight. I still think UofL just has a better matchup against them, just the way our blocking has been against Georgia Tech. The trick is really going to be being able to minimize the damage that the Killer Bees can do to you, especially with Bergman and Brumbia, and just how effective and great they performed against Ohio State on Thursday. Just watching that match on ESPN Plus, and I mean, if you didn't have those two on the court for Georgia Tech, I'd don't think they would have won the match just because of how effective they were. And Ohio State's a good program, and being in the Big Ten has faced a lot of tough teams. After watching how we played against Florida, especially that third set where we were just ready to put it away, I do feel a little more comfortable than at first, just because I think we kind of found a hot streak and everyone's hitting well. If we limit the service errors, I think we're going to be all right.
That's the key. Also, certainly great blocking, but let's take a look at Tech. Obviously, 2 defeats to Cardinals back in October. Louisville went to Atlanta, took a 25-15, 36-34. No, I didn't misread that. 25-22 sweep over the Yellow Jackets. And Jeff, I think I'll remember that second set for quite a long time.
Maybe as a nightmare, but I mean, we won it, so it's not that bad. But yeah, it was what a battle between two really, really good teams slugging away. Louisville was a better blocking team, as we frequently are, and I think that really shows when we can get our blocking up and running. That's what drives the transition into the offense for us. That helps out the defensive players to be able to dig and pass better and dig better. And then, that's you can almost look down the list of our games and look at, how good was our blocking, and usually have a pretty good sense of how the match went.
Sure, and when you speak at Tech, you've obviously got to speak of the ACC Player of the Year, and Julia Bergman.
Mm-hmm.
She's a phenomenal force for them. Just in playing Louisville twice this year, I think she had 12 kills against us in Atlanta, and maybe 10 when they came to town a little over a month after that Atlanta match. And by the way, in that second match, the Cards did sweep, but once again, it wasn't an easy sweep. 25-21, 25-21, and then that third set, 25 or 27-25. Georgia Tech making it very difficult for Louisville, but the Cards still prevailing on that one. Bergman is a force, Jeff.
She is. She's a very, very fine player, tall, which obviously helps a bit. Um, Jared talked about the killer bees, which I do. In case I know you mentioned this in the article as well, I do love that as a nickname. They've got these 3 players whose last names begin with B, and of course they're the Yellow Jackets. So it's great. I love it.
It's amazingly perfect. Like,
yeah,
you
it really
can't,
is.
you can't ask for a better pairing to play off each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So a fairly international crew as well. Bergman is German, I think, and Brambilla and Bertolino are sorry, not Brambilla and Bertolino are Brazilian and Italian, I think. I'm trying to remember that for sure.
I'm gonna double check you while you're doing.
So Bergman was born in Germany, Munich, Germany. Went to Brazil for high school. So she's been all over the place. Yeah. It's just great. They're great, powerful offensive team. Maybe not quite so good on defense as we're seeing, but that may be their weak spot. But yeah, they're a very fine team. I was saying all season, they're underrated. So they're starting to finally get that rating and recognition of the skills. And I was not surprised. I think I was saying before the show started, my mother and I left the Georgia Tech Ohio State match at 15-14 in the first set, which is a nice close score. But I turned to my mother and I said, "Yeah, we can leave now. Georgia Tech's going to win." They were just playing better. Ohio State was. So,
just a quick follow up there, Jeff. Like you mentioned, Bergman, Germany to Brazil for high school. Brambilla is Brazilian. And Bertolino is Argentinian.
Okay. So, so lots of South American
connection there.
Yeah, pipeline going on there. So.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Jared, when we look at this Georgia Tech team, only 5 losses on the season, 4 of those in the ACC, where Louisville beat them twice, Pittsburgh beat them once, and then a win by Notre Dame against them. But When 4 of your 5 losses on the season come within conference, the only other one being to UCLA, this is a team that you should not take lightly.
Well, in all due respect, any team you play at this point in the tournament, you shouldn't take lightly.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
but a 5-loss team, and other than Notre Dame, which depending on which Notre Dame team you saw this year, none of those are bad losses at all. Because obviously, us being number one in the country and without tooting our own horn, I mean, anybody who loses to us, you can't call it a bad loss. And Pitt is just as great of a team, and any time you lose to them, you can't call it a bad loss. And Georgia Tech just kind of happened to be, I mean, you could say like the lesser of the big three in terms of the ACC, and then if you want to throw Miami up there, kind of like the lesser of the big four. But I think Georgia Tech is just like a hair behind Louisville and Pittsburgh. Not a lot, but just when you kind of compare them and what everybody's done this year, it's somebody's got to lose, and this year it's mostly been Georgia Tech. But they're still not a team you need to overlook, and especially trying to get a sweep a team on the season for a third time or just get a third win against them is extremely difficult at this point in the year. They've seen you in person twice. They know what to do to beat you. If they can turn, if you look back in Atlanta, if they could turn that second set around, I mean, I hate to say it, but we are beatable, just depending on who shows up to play for us and how teams are able to counter those. But playing at home here in Louisville and just going to have a several thousand person crowd, I do feel like we do have a nice advantage right now.
And in case if there was any dispute or kind of eyebrow raising by Cardinal fans on how Bergman ended up being an ACC Player of the Year instead of one of our fine players, listen to these numbers: 493 kills on the season so far, and she's hitting 298%. Both of those numbers just stand out to me and go, wow, do they like to get her the ball much, and what does she do with it? She's pretty effective.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville kind of suffered from a rising tide raises all boats, or however that goes, where you can't really point to one player who's been just outstanding, because basically all of Louisville has been outstanding. You look at the all-region team for the ABCA East region, and Louisville's entire starting lineup is the all-region team. So you're like, well,
one was honorable mention, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Defensive specialist honorable mention, right? But you had
it was Claire.
Oh, Claire, but they had 6 on the team, because you had 2 hitters, Tory, both middle blockers, and Elena. Yeah. So a 6-player squad on the all East region team, and then you had the player of the year in that region, and the coach of the year of that region. So, there were a ton of choices for the ACC Player of the Year, and one of those situations where probably Louisville's players were taking a lot of votes from each other, as well as hard to pick out, just a standout player for Louisville, just as much as it's hard to pick out a standout player from Georgia Tech, like we've mentioned, the Killer Bees. Bergman actually didn't lead Georgia Tech in kills. Had a pretty quiet night against Ohio State, actually. Brambilla had 18 of the Killer Bees combined, 36 kills, and those 3 combined for 72% of the total kills for the team. But yeah, she's just been fantastic, like you mentioned, extremely efficient, hitting nearly 300. If the ball goes up to her, there's a really good chance that it's going to get down on the opponent's side of the court and be a point. So, I don't think that any Louisville players are probably too hung up on it. They're just going to take that as some motivation, I think, to go into today's match and try to beat Georgia Tech for the 3rd time.
We've mentioned a little bit here, Jared, about the OSU game, the Georgia Tech won. People may have the question, well, how did they get there beside that? They first started the tournament by beating the Citadel, a fine military institution college down in South Carolina. I think you spent a little time down there. Did you play in the Euphonium? Maybe, or no, maybe not. But
Never got to the Citadel before, but I've been fairly close when visiting Katie Stanley before.
and then after the win over the Citadel, they knocked off a WKU team who only had one loss prior to the match. And that's certainly a big win for them, and it was a tough contest for them. So they've been battle tested, sir.
Yeah, it's the WKU match, the sweep, in fact, that kind of surprised me and shows us just how good Georgia Tech is. Because there's a couple times in a couple of those sets that Western Kentucky looked like they could go on a slight run to close the door or get the win in some of those sets, and Georgia Tech just never broke. They would bend a couple times, but they never broke, and they would just regroup and power through to get the win. And we've seen in the past just how good Western Kentucky is, and they're just about ready to run with Louisville and Kentucky to kind of have your big three in terms of volleyball in the state of Kentucky. And it's not even as much as I was impressed by the Ohio State sweep. It's just I was really impressed by the Western Kentucky sweep and how well they played. So Georgia Tech's on a hot streak, and just like us, they've swept everybody they've met in the NCAA tournament so far. So this will certainly be a good matchup.
As for the Cards, if you're listening and not totally up on it, the Cards, of course, swept UIC, the Flames, to start the tournament. Drew Ball State next, took the Northern Cardinals down 3-0, and then ended up playing Florida on Thursday in Freedom Hall with a 3-0 set win against the Gators, who made it fairly interesting, Jeff, I think, in the second set, but Louisville, being the 1 seed, took down the number 16 with not too much drama, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a challenge, but in the second set, but they made it happen. Sorry, my desktop's doing weird things here. Pardon me. I'm a little distracted at the moment.
Oh, not a problem. Let's take a look then at what the Cards have done on the body of the season just quickly as we get ready for this match. Iko Jones, third in the ACC, with a .36 ace per set average, which I think is fantastic. Her accolades are just all over the place. Maya Tillian is second in the ACC and eighth in the NCAA with 1.38 blocks per set. That's pretty incredible right there. Anna Stevenson, fourth in the ACC with 1.29 blocks per set. Anna DeBeer, 3.22 kills per set. Case, I'm getting a trend here. Gee, we're pretty good at blocking and killing.
Yeah, we talked about how good all the players have been and their accolades that they've received so far. The Go Cards write-up for today's match talks about the team rankings. You're talking a little bit of individual rankings, but as a team, Louisville first in the ACC in aces per set. First in the ACC, obviously, because they're fourth in the country in blocks per set at 2.98. It rounds up to 3.0 if you're just looking at UofL stats page, which is fun. But actually, if you just go to that next digit, then you've got three teams sitting at 3.0 with Tennessee and Purdue just ahead of the Cards by just a couple of hundredths. Maryland, actually the best blocking team in the country, no longer in the tournament, to my knowledge. In addition to the blocking, Louisville's hitting extremely well, best in the country, or best in the ACC, fourth in the country, 304. Kills per set, only fourth in the ACC, which is interesting. Getting a bit of a benefit from some errors, but also that is going to come down to how many points they're winning on blocking, obviously. The opponent hitting percentage down based on the blocking as well, and then total aces and total blocks, Louisville leading the ACC. So Louisville didn't get here, didn't get to be undefeated. They didn't get to this point in the tournament by luck or by
Not at all.
winning a couple of matches or having opponents hit poorly. Louisville has played extremely well in the service game. We've talked about that a lot over the last few years about how Louisville really needed to turn that around because their serving was holding them back to an extent. Danny Busman Kelly finally really getting the team in place and the players in place and the cohesion and understanding to get the blocking team that she's wanted, really powerful blocking from all the players that can get on the court to really drive that play, and then just efficient hitting. Amaya Tillman and Anna Stevenson have been extremely efficient hitting out of the middle, which you expect. But then Igo Jones and Anna DeBeer and Claire Chaussee have been pretty good from the outside. It's a little tougher to get a high hitting percentage from out there just because, you're trying to get around blocks more often. You're getting side outs a lot more often. But Louisville's been pretty efficient from a hitting perspective. And obviously that goes to Tory Dilfer for getting them to that position.
And
with good sets.
let's stop right there. We haven't mentioned Tory Dilfer a whole lot in this broadcast, but Jeff, talk about the wonder that Tory Dilfer has been since she got here.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Obviously, she's a transfer. Came out of Texas Christian. Came and joined us a few years ago. Was looking for a little more than what the Texas Christian program was offering. I love the story that's been told a few times over the past week or so that when she came first in contact with Louisville. I don't know who initiated. I think probably Coach Busman Kelly did, but she told Tori, you may come in here, you may be sitting on the bench. We may be playing a 6-2, which they did for a while actually. So, or you may be able to come in and win the starting role in this program. Nothing was guaranteed. Nothing was given to her. Nothing was assured to her that she would be able to be this dominant player. But she came in here and she made it work. She put the hard work in. She's a phenomenal athlete. Obviously, comes from athletic stock with her father and mother, both standout athletes at Fresno State, and then of course Dilfer going on to bigger and greater things as well. She's got two sisters that have both played volleyball and Division I level. Just really has that drive and competition. And sometimes you hear them talk about maybe a little too much competition, but competition to competitive spirit to be able to come in and excel at what she does. She's done amazing.
And Jared, you get a chance being down on the floor and in the arena to watch her. She is that team leader out there when she gets there, and she is the one in the brief huddle after points either way that pumps up the rest of the players and never is down when she's on that court.
Yeah, and that's the expectation with a setter is somebody who's going to be your captain and your leader out there. Just be able to pull everybody together if something's going wrong, or just help regroup. She's usually the one out there that's calling some of the plays and just kind of making sure everybody's where they need to be on the court. You can look at it kind of like the quarterback of football. You're not going to be successful if you don't have a good setter. And we've seen in the past where UofL, when they've had great setters, they've done really well. And that could be Wilma Rivera, Katie George, and then years where maybe they didn't have a great setter situation, the years and the seasons may not have been as great. So in a way, you kind of live and die by your setter, and then you're able to build the team and the program around that.
That is definitely true. You do build your team around that. Jeff will be in the seats watching.
Yep.
Jared will be down on the floor and in the arena taking photos and selfies of himself with Freddie Farm Bureau throughout the day.
I'll be running down to lead the cheers.
Leading the cheers and
trying not to fall ass over tea kettle on a
Yes, just hold on to the rail.
It's new terrain.
Because between my seats in the front of at the bottom of the aisle is like 6 different pitches of stairs. It keeps changing on the way down.
Case and I will be monitoring on ESPNU, and Case, I do hope and pray that we do get Katie George back again for commentary. She does such a wonderful job.
Yeah, I believe we do have her.
Yeah, she's great. And just a quick note about Katie George, since you were talking about Tory Dilfer really being that leader. I think that is what Louisville has needed her to be. Since she arrived, she hasn't really been, or she wasn't really as vocal in the opening stages of her career with Louisville. You're coming off of Katie George, one of the most, emotive players that you could think of on a volleyball
Yeah.
court, followed by Wilma Rivera,
No doubt.
who was just as excitable, just as much of an emotional leader as well as a team leader. And Tori Dilfer was a little bit more reserved, and this season you've seen her just really shed that shell and lean completely into being an emotional leader as well as a leader of the plays and keeping things on track. And I think that has kind of turned the tide in Louisville's ability to stay on track when things get a little bit haywire for the team, and she's able to keep things on track.
Katie embodies to me and always will the double fist pump.
Oh yeah.
And whenever I see her, I give her that brief little double fist pump to her, and she always gets a grin on her face because she was fantastic in it. But so this is going on here in our town today. But Jeff, hey, they're playing other games to see if people can get themselves into a Final Four situation. Fill us in just a little bit on some of the other big matchups today.
Yeah, I would have to go look at the bracket to make sure I get all of them. But we got let's see, Nebraska at Texas, I think, right? Got yeah, that could be a battle, or it could be a blowout because Texas got scared against Washington. Washington was up 2-0. Texas had to do the reverse sweep on that, and frankly, Texas got lucky. Washington just melted down. So that one could be an interesting one. That is on the far side of the bracket from us. And on the other side of our half of the bracket is Minnesota, Wisconsin. That's always an interesting battle when those two teams match up in the Big Ten. That's a 4 seed versus a 12. Wisconsin, a 4 seed, so it's in Madison. And then the other matchup is Pittsburgh and Purdue, which could also be a really good game. Kayla Lund is back and playing for Pittsburgh, so they have her services back. I get the impression she may not quite be 100%, but she is back and playing, so that will help Pittsburgh a lot. I never, ever, ever count out a Dave Shondell team at Purdue. He is a phenomenal coach. He can make great things happen with a team that maybe doesn't look like it should be able to. So, yeah, some really interesting matchups in the Elite Eight, 4 matches all today, all on ESPNU. And should be a fun day of volleyball. Some good stuff going on. Some great matchups.
Indeed. So check your local listings and internet providers if you want to catch any of that. I guess, and let's I guess final thoughts here on volleyball. Maybe obviously out of me. Let's go Cards. Let's get this W. Let's move on to Columbus and earn our berth in the Final Four. Any other final thoughts on volleyball, guys? Jeff, anything from you?
Just play Louisville volleyball. We'll be fine. Get this win and move on.
Block and kill.
Yeah. Somebody said, this team is a beatable team, right? We are if we're not playing at our best. If we're playing at our best, I don't think anybody in the country can beat us. So it's a bold statement, but
I think it has some pretty good backing to it because nobody has yet, and they only got 3 more chances.
Yep.
Hopefully. All right. In case we had basketball this week as well. The day after our Cardinal Couple Radio Hour broadcast, the Cards entertained Belmont. Imagine running the Belmont in Louisville. Hearsay, I say. No, Belmont University, a fine school that came in and didn't perform so well against Louisville women's basketball in the first half, but gave the Cards a little of all they wanted in this second half. Louisville getting the 80-66 win. The Cards putting 4 in double figures, but I think we may have seen one of the best Cards in the country on the other side of the court in Destiny Wells.
Yeah, we talked about after the Michigan match about how it was really promising for Louisville to be able to get a bunch of reserves in different lineups, and still be performing well against a top team in the country. And then they were outscored in the second half by Belmont. So not quite the follow up that you wanted to see. But like you mentioned, Destiny Wells was pretty fantastic. Struggled a little bit on the turnover side, 7 of them, but Belmont had 18. Louisville was pretty good defensively from that regard, forced 10 steals. But she finished 8 of 14 from the floor, 3 of 7 from beyond the arc, 19 points, 2 steals, 2 assists, and 5 rebounds to go along with the not so great turnovers. Belmont wholly unable to get to the line. They 1 for 1 on the day. They fired a ton of 3-pointers. They were not pushing to get into the lane to force Louisville to foul. 9 of 29 from 3, and 28 of 62 overall. So Louisville was, good enough in the first half to stretch this one out by quite a bit, led by 15 at the break. But like I mentioned, that 6-point loss in the fourth quarter was a little bit concerning for a team that was 4-3 coming in, hadn't really played much of anybody, and you expected a little bit more from Louisville after how they performed with reserves in against Michigan, like I mentioned. So
It was
hopefully,
indeed.
hopefully they can recover and be a little better for Kentucky tomorrow.
It was indeed. And Jared and I got to sit in on Jeff Wall's post game, and he was asked a question right off the bat about the defensive effort, and Jeff kind of just stared blankly at the questioner and goes, "What defense? We didn't play any defense in the second half. That was ridiculous." He's partially right there, Jared, but I want to point out a couple of good things, and we can discuss these. We won that points in the paint battle, 46-28. We had the second chance points edge, 16-4, and we out-rebounded them 40-24. That's pretty good, huh?
Oh yeah, I didn't get to sit in on the press conference because I had to leave early for a concert that day, but there were plenty of still good signs for Louisville basketball, and as much as I hate playing close games, sometimes it's better to go on and just get a couple of those under your belt so you do know what it feels like, because once you get to ACC play and then you get to the postseason, you're going to have some close games, and you have to know what it feels like and how to remain calm and focused to pull out the win. And even though I think we did panic quite a bit against Belmont at times, especially in some of our slumps, and then when Belmont got hot, at least it's a chance for a lot of the new faces, some of the transfers and the freshmen, just to know what it feels like to play in a close game and understand that you can still win it, and just you can't panic and stress over it.
The Cards 39-24 at the end of the first half, get the 80-66 win, and then got an entire week off of not playing any games until they take the court against the mighty Kentucky this Sunday in the KFC Yum Center. Jeff Walls had a press conference yesterday where he substantially went into it to preview the contest, but kind of went off on a tangent about leadership at universities and mentioned Neely Bendaputi a couple of times. I think we find that Jeff Walls will speak his mind on any subject at any time, and even alter the subject if he wants to get his point across.
Yeah, he will do that. Yeah, I mean, Walls pulls no punches. He's not afraid to say what he thinks. There's obviously was a lot of chatter this week about Bendaputi not supporting athletics, which is hogwash, and he basically said that he used a little stronger words than I did, as he is wont to do. I'm not surprised to see him go off on that a little bit. He's not going to pull any punches on that topic at all. It's done. Bendaputi's off to bigger and better things. I can't fault her. I wish her well. And women's basketball here at UofL and volleyball will continue to be excellent and be fantastic. And
regardless of what chaos is going on around us. So
They will indeed, and neither coach has said that the events of the campus has affected their preparation and what they're trying to do. But Case, let's focus our attention to Kentucky here. A Cats team who went to Rupp Arena instead of Memorial Barnyard on Thursday. No big ass fans in the ceilings, and maybe it affected UK's performance because they fell to Dougie Bruno and the DePauw's women's team 94-85. A big win for the Blue Demons.
Yeah, big week for DePaul, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
Kentucky takes their second loss. Their first one, also a pretty lopsided loss to Indiana earlier in the season. Lost by 21 in Bloomington. They'll probably fall out of the top 15, barring a win over Louisville tomorrow. But it will be top 15 for the moment when they come into the Yum Center tomorrow. That game against DePaul, like you mentioned, fairly close. Final was a 9-point victory. That was, if I get to the play-by-play here at the end, stretched out a bit by intentional fouling to try and get UK back in the game, but they were down by 12 in the final stages of the fourth quarter. So DePaul took an early lead, led by 2 in the first quarter, 5 at halftime, and just never really let UK come back and threaten. They won every quarter. Like I mentioned, had a fairly significant lead before Kentucky tried to bring it back. But like we talked about a little bit off air, they really found a way to limit Ryan Howard, which if you're going to beat Kentucky, that's probably the way you're going to do it. She was only able to get 9 shot attempts in the whole game, 2 3-point attempts. She got to the line a ton.
Big foul trouble.
Yeah, she finished with 4 fouls, so was really limited, but still managed to play 30 minutes and only get that few number of shots. But she did get to the line, was effective there, perfect from the line, 6 of 6. But yeah, if that's the way that Louisville's going to be able to defend her as well, and we've seen Louisville become really locked down defensively, I have to imagine that since you have a top 5 ISO defender in the country in Haley Van Lith, that it shouldn't be any surprise when Louisville deploys maybe man-to-man or at least a matchup zone that's going to put Van Lith on Howard for most of the offensive possessions. If that's the way that you can shut down this Kentucky team, then that's the way that Louisville's going to look to do it. And I think that one thing they can't depend on is Kentucky to miss every single 3-point attempt in the entire game like they did against DePaul.
And I'm excited for Dougie Bruno getting his win. I really am. I'm disappointed in him in the fact that he did not wear his prison issue blue DePaul shirt to the contest, and he was not in his Grateful Dead tie. He had some kind of fancy DePaul pullover for it, but I'm going to have to shoot him an email on that because that's lower standards for me. But Kyra Elsie obviously has an opinion about this game, guys. She is the head coach, obviously, of Kentucky women's basketball. And talking a little bit about the rivalry, she goes, she knows that it's something where both are teams in the state of Kentucky and both have great basketball programs that are going to definitely leave it all on the floor against each other. Talking a little bit about her kids, she goes, they understand the importance of how fans love this game and the energy and the intensity that surrounds it. But she did kind of point out that it could be kind of rough on her charges coming into the KFCM Center for this one, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, KFCM Center is a almost unique experience in women's basketball, right? There just aren't that many
basketball arenas used for women's basketball that have that sort of atmosphere and environment and setup. We've talked about in the past how players coming through the UofL program experiencing that are experiencing crowds that may be bigger than they would see if they go play professional levels. So it's a pressure cooker. It's big. It's loud. We pack a lot of people in there. There will probably be a fair number of people in blue, as there typically is, because it's probably, I'm going to say probably, I'm not sure it's guaranteed, but probably not going to be a sellout. But that's an environment you just don't see in women's basketball almost ever.
Keys to a Cardinal win, Jared?
First, just to chip in on the sellout. Last I heard, we're at about 11,000 tickets sold. So, for KFC in center capacity, we're halfway there. So I don't see us getting there. But still, I think 12, 13, maybe 14,000 is doable.
That'd be fantastic.
And keys to the game. I mean, well, first, Louisville is just gotta hope they still have that consistent offense that we're finally starting to see a little bit. That just wasn't not there in the first part of the season. I think that was been our biggest hill we had to get over so far this season. It's just the shooting on offense, and that goes from missed layups, which is just bad, to poor free throw shooting, to lots of missed 3-point shooters or 3-point shots from some of our big time shooters. Defense, I'm not really worried about defense. Yeah, they had a little issue against Belmont, but I think that's gonna be the eye-opening part for them on defense. Is like, oh, well, we really can't slack, or somebody's gonna come back. So I think we'll be right back to where we were defensively. You've got to be able to contain and control Ryan Howard, as Jeff or Casey mentioned earlier. DePaul did an excellent job of doing that. They shut down Ryan Howard early, and then just kind of got her out of rhythm, and they got her on the bench with some foul trouble at one point. So if you're able to shut down their best player and one of the best players in the country, who's going to be a first-round WNBA draft pick next draft, I mean, you shut down Ryan Howard, get your consistent offense going, and you'll be able to win this game.
All good points there. Case, to kind of follow up on what Jared said here, some of the keys to the Cards emerging victorious Sunday.
I think, like I mentioned, you got to shut down Ryan Howard if that's the blueprint that DePaul's going to put out, and then just continue to rebound well, get second chance points, limit offensive rebound opportunities for the opposition, and like I said, you got to focus on defending what you can defend, and can't just hope that UK is going to go 0 for 14 from the arc again.
Yeah, that's for sure. Jeff, anything to add to the synopsis on how we win?
No, I always look back and think of Walls' approach, which is defense creates offense. Get out there and get on defense, shut down the team, force turnovers, force missed shots, force challenging shots, and then set up. Or if they hit the shot, then you set up your mad dog press, which we love so much, and that's how this team wins. That's how they've won for years when they do well, and hope to see it tomorrow against Kentucky. Ryan, it's kind of the Ryan Howard and backup crew, kind of. It sounds disrespectful to the rest of the team, which I don't want to be, but that's kind of what we see out of Kentucky a lot recently. So, we obviously got to focus on her. So,
and the way I see it here, we've got to be able to, I think, control 3 categories to beat Kentucky tomorrow. First of all, I think we need to win the points in the paint battle. No doubt about that, indeed. I think we need to have our forwards and Olivia and also Liz Dixon crashing those boards, getting those good inside shots, making those baskets. I also think that Louisville needs to limit the turnovers against Kentucky. I think that if they can keep this turnover margin under 15, they stand a good chance of winning this game. And third of all, I really think that we need to get after one of our stellar first half stompings of an opponent, building a sizable double-digit lead, and then hanging on for dear life in the second half. That's the way I see it. But Kentucky's certainly not going to roll over. But I think that this is the kind of game where Emily Enschler could really, really be a strong component for Louisville. With her blue collar put on a hard head, yeah, I'm going to fight you. I don't care who you are. I'm going for that ball, and you can't stop me attitude. So it should be fun. And it's something I want to do, and we haven't done this all year long. But I'm going to ask the boys to put on their thinking caps here. I will do it as well, although I lost my thinking cap. Give me who wins and final score. Who wins and final score.
Back to this.
Yeah, and since Jeff is already expressing disillusionment about this, I'm going to start with Case because Case is never without an opinion.
That's still fair. Jeff just voiced his concerns about having to give a thing. I didn't.
Or are you doing the same?
No, Kentucky's been an extremely high scoring team so far this season. They've broken 80 in all but 2 of their games. One being that lost at IU, of course, and then a little bit of a down offensive game and a win over LaSalle. But a powerful offensive team. On the flip side, Louisville has only given up 69.6 points per game, or have scored 69.6 points per game, only given up 46.4 points per game. So something has to give there. I think, Kentucky scoring that many points against DePaul without hitting any threes is concerning. So I think that Louisville's defense is going to bend a little bit. But Kentucky's defense has been quite poor. I'm going to say Louisville wins by 12. Give me 82-70.
82-70 for Case. As we move next to Jared, while Jeff still stews over there in his abode about having to do this. Jared, can the Cards win this? What do you think? What's the final score?
Yeah, I'm definitely putting my money on the Cards to win. The final score, I don't think it's going to be as high as we're all hoping or kind of thinking, just because it's Louisville's defense is not going to really break to the point of giving up anything in the high 70s or 80s. I think it's going to be a lot closer to the last time that we played Kentucky, where it came down to the final shot in a one-score game. And I think the Cards are going to win this one. Let's say 75-73.
A 75-73 out of Jared in this one. Another chance for me to have a heart attack at this media table. Thanks for that, buddy.
We'll get you a roller or a stretcher.
I think just bring me one of Jeff Walls' free beers and I'll be fine, okay? All right, 2 guys in the books. Jeff, I'm turning to you now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have faith that our defense is able to play well and shut down Ryan Howard, and so I'm expecting this to be a fairly low scoring. I'm gonna say Louisville, and I'm gonna say about I'm close to Jared on this one. I'm gonna say 74-70.
74-70. Jeff sees another heart palpitation game for Paulie over there on the sidelines. That's fine. I did write down my score, guys. I want you to know before you started with yours, okay? In all truth and fairness, the first thing that came to my mind was 81-69. So I wrote it down. So I'm very close to Case. And I do think, like I mentioned earlier, I think that we'll come out prepared, ready to go in the first half of this game. And I think we will build a lead on Kentucky. But I'll be nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs in the second half, because we know Kentucky is going to try to come back on us, and we know they aren't going to just hang their heads and say, oh, we can't win here now. Ryan Howard is not going to, I think, suffer the foul trouble that she had against DePaul. And I look for her to have an All-American performance against us, because I don't know we got anybody who can match up against her one-on-one, let's face it, okay? We did okay on Naz Hellman, but Ryan is a different creature. But it should be a fun one, like we mentioned, at the KFCM Center. 1 o'clock Sunday. and available on ESPN. Debbie Antonelli will be in the house. My girl Deb. I'm going to have to walk over and say hi to her. Are they going to have them actually in the house though? That's my question. Or are they going to be watching in their cozy living rooms at home?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's going to wonder. I'll keep an eye out on that and see if if she's there. Then I'll go over and pledge my undying love to Deb and ask her if she thinks it's going to be a defensive struggle and get her all pissed off.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. But we've already rolled up on the noon hour, so let's go ahead and jump into some final thoughts. Jared, start us out this week with final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts. Just since we've already kind of talked about the tornado and that, so my final thoughts will go more towards just hoping that we can keep the spotlight and attention and coverage on how well volleyball and women's basketball have been doing, and maybe put some of the other news to the side for a while and try and look at the positives, because there are certainly some great positives going on at UofL, and it's a shame they've been getting overshadowed so much.
Absolutely so. Very well put, sir. Case, what do you got for me?
Did we lose Case?
Nope, sorry, that's me being muted.
All right.
Just
He
to
was
echo.
stunned that I asked him to go second.
Yeah, right. What Jared said, just reflect on how we started the show and keep everybody in your thoughts as more information is uncovered and the clouds break a little bit. But on a more positive note, looking at a post from Bellarmine men's basketball.
You're taking mine.
Got it. I posted on their Twitter account that they had, I guess, practice yesterday, I think. And so they left a note in their locker room on the whiteboard. All the players signed it with a good luck note for Louisville. And a fairly decent freehand sketch with an expo marker of the Louisville mascot.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
At least fairly decent for people that don't go to UofL. You know, they don't see it 100% of the time. So a nice indication that a lot of Louisville all around is rooting for this volleyball team to bring some positivity to the whole city instead of some other negativity that's been going on.
Scotty and his crew over there at Bellarmine are such a class act.
They really are. They're
and
great.
I've loved Scotty for so many years.
Yeah.
Actually had the chance to play against him in high school when he was at Iroquois, and I was at Fern Creek. And he was this chubby little guy who would just try to shut you down defensively and was always mouthing off.
As you might expect, Scotty Davenport's signature just looks like a fifth grader who has really gotten good at his cursive. Like it's not like anything over the top. It's just his name in a well-polished cursive.
Yeah.
I love Scotty, and if he wants to take over our AD job, come on over, pal. You've got the enthusiasm and sports knowledge to do it. We'll take you in a heartbeat, Scotty, because there will never be any down moments if you're behind a microphone. That's for sure. All right, Jeff, since you had your final thought stolen,
That's right.
come
That's
up with
nice.
something completely off your shoulders.
Just kind of echoing. Obviously, the Bellarmine folks are great people, and that's great to see. I also want to say thanks to Jeff Walls. He's been like volleyball's chief marketing officer for the past week. Beyond his offer to buy people a drink for showing ticket stubs from Thursday and today for volleyball, he's been basically every interview he's done, he's turned to supporting UofL volleyball, encouraging people to come out and see the team, including even I saw a clip from Packer and Durham on the ACC network. So that's kind of a almost national level thing that, at the end of it, he said, "Hey, wait a minute, before we go, I want to talk about volleyball." He may have given them a heads up because they had a graphic ready to go about volleyball. So, he's been great with that. It's great to see. There were a lot of coaches from different teams and a lot of the players from different teams out there Thursday. I suspect we'll see that again today. It's great just to see the intra department support for a team that's doing so well.
Indeed, big support. As for me, I'm going to keep my final thoughts very basic and very simple, and I've got three of them. First of all, I do hope that we win volleyball today, and I'd love to see another sweep, but I'll take a 3-2 cliffhanger because I desperately want to see this team go compete for a Final Four in Columbus. Second of all, I do want to continue on Sunday our wins against Kentucky women's basketball, and I hope that it's a win that doesn't have me going home and checking my blood pressure after the game and possibly asking Jared to go get me a Pepsi. Okay. Third of all, I would love to see Louisville honor this volleyball team Sunday during the game sometime and bring them out to the court when they beat Georgia Tech. And I would love to see our crowd at the KFCM Center just go absolutely crazy nuts when they're brought out onto the court after that win over Georgia Tech. Because, let's face it, folks, we got the number one team in the country right here. Let's get behind them, okay? Let's do that. All right. A good show today. We'll certainly be watching things this weekend, and we'll be back with you next week, Saturday at 11 a.m., unless you know something we don't. I want to thank you for listening to this edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour Podcast.